Hi everyone, my name is Camille Adams and I am one of our registered dietitians here for the YMCA of Greater Grand Rapids. I'm so excited to film our Cook It Up recipes. Cook It Up is a program that we sponsor here at the YMCA. We go into elementary and middle schools all around Grand Rapids and we bring fresh produce and funky recipes that these kids may have never tried to those schools and those kids. We have instructors that go into our schools and they teach, just like you will see me teaching here, how to make functional recipes that will last for life. We also try to put a healthy twist on everything that we do, and I'm super excited to be here today. Today, we are cooking it up and getting back to basics with breakfast basics. An omelet is on today's menu. This is a great way to learn how to utilize your eggs in just a little bit different way than a scramble, and it's healthy, nutritious, and easy, which is always a reoccurring theme in these cook it up recipes. The main ingredients you'll need is eggs, obviously. We're going to use a mix of green and red pepper, a white onion, and some beautiful mushrooms. And let's start with cutting our produce. I'm gonna start with the onion. I've washed my hands and washed all the produce that I need. You always wanna start that way. We're going to start with cutting our onion and of course using our claw method to avoid any mishaps with our fingers. We're gonna hold it in a shape like this, and I'm gonna start by cutting it in half. So now that the onion's cut in half, I'm going to cut it in half again and use a quarter of it. Feel free to set the rest to the side. Now that we have our beautiful onion quarter, we're gonna peel back the layers. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the movie Shrek, which is one of my favorite movies, but he talks about ogres are like onions. They have layers. Just like our onion here, we wanna pull back the layers on it. We can cut off this little part at the top. And now we're gonna go in and dice our onion. I like to make horizontal strips, not cutting all the way through, but about halfway. And then I turn it around and I cut perpendicular. This is just a quick way to help you dice it quick. Just gonna go over it one more time to make sure we have nice tiny pieces. We want there to be tiny pieces so that it's evenly distributed within the omelet. Great, now we can set these to the side. And we're gonna start with our peppers. We're gonna use 1/4 cup of each ingredient, so I don't need that much of each pepper, so I'm just gonna take just a little bit of each. And then we can put the rest to the side. Sometimes there's a little middle part with some seeds. You can just throw that away. We're going to cut our peppers into a similar shape that we cut our onions. And what I like to do is cut it in strips and then go in and cut the little square shapes. Green peppers are super great to cook and to put in recipes. They're tangy, just a hint of spice. And red peppers, like the orange and the yellow peppers, are kind of sweet. So these are great to eat raw, sometimes dipped in hummus. But they're gonna add a beautiful color to our omelet. And you can use any ingredients that you'd like. This is your omelet. And remember, it's breakfast basics. So I don't want you to have to go out to the grocery store. Use whatever's in your fridge. I've seen people make a Western omelet with ham, green pepper, and mushrooms. I've seen people put pepperoni in there, mozzarella, do a vegetarian cheese omelet. But this is a great way to, again, add some veggies and some nutrients into your everyday breakfast. We wanna make sure that all the ingredients are cut in a similar shape so that they cook evenly. Great, and then we can set this aside as well. We are almost halfway done with the recipe. That's why we call it breakfast basics. Now we're gonna use our beautiful mushrooms. You can use any type of mushrooms you like. These are little white button mushrooms. You can use portobellas, baby bellas, shiitake, whatever you'd like. I'm gonna use about 3 of these mushrooms. You can either cut, or sometimes I like to tear the stems off like this. We're going to use the stems though, so don't forget them. And I love mushrooms. They add a great umami flavor, which is something that you get from meat or soy sauce. It's just nice and salty and robust. Gonna cut my mushrooms into strips, and just like the onions and the peppers, I'm going to cut them into little squares afterwards. Mushrooms do not take that long to cook, and so sometimes in recipes you want to add them at the very end. But in this one, especially if they're the same size, everything should cook evenly. Now, mushrooms are a type of produce that you want to wash right before you use it. Sometimes there's hidden dirt on it. And other vegetables, like these peppers or some leafy greens like kale or spinach, you can wash a couple hours before, but mushrooms, you want to wash right before you use them, which we did today. Chopping is my favorite part. It makes everything so pretty, and it's kind of like therapy for me. Great, all of our vegetables are done. Now we can move on to our eggs. So I'm just gonna set everything to the back of my cutting board right here. We're going to be using 2 eggs for this recipe. And here's a little pro tip. I know a lot of people are used to cracking their eggs on the side of the bowl, but I like to crack mine on a hard surface like the counter or my cutting board, and it makes it a lot easier to get the eggs out, especially if you're frying eggs and you wanna keep the beautiful yolk intact. Always make sure to wash your hands after touching eggs to get rid of any unwanted bacteria. And I'm going to go do that right now. Now I've just washed my hands, they're squeaky clean, and we're ready to keep going. Now we're gonna whisk the eggs together using a whisk. If you don't have a whisk, you can always use a fork, but this is a great tool to mix things together, get all the lumps out. So what I like to do is I take my whisk and I put it directly into the egg yolk to break it up, and then just start mixing. You can just mix like regular like this. You can get really fancy with it, with your wrist, whatever you'd like to do. Whisking helps beat air into the egg. The more air that's in them, the fluffier they will be. Eggs are something called an emulsifier, which basically means that you can put liquid and fat together. Have you ever had water and oil and they separate? Well, when you put eggs together, they can come together. That's why they're a staple in baking, because they can bring everything together and bind it. This looks great. Now we can add all of our vegetables into our egg, and we are super close to making our omelet. I'm gonna use 1/4 cup of each vegetable to make sure there's the exact same amount in there. One time I used too many vegetables and it did not cook evenly, so this is a great way to make sure the eggs and the vegetables cook all together at once. So I'm gonna use 1/4 cup of my white onion, 1/4 cup of my green and my red pepper, and I'm also going to use 1/4 cup of my mushrooms. Great. You can use a spoon, or I just kind of like to mix it together like this in the bowl. And now we are ready to move on to cooking. We are now ready to cook our omelet. Very anticipated, so let's start. I have my skillet, my pan in front of me, and this is an induction cooktop, which means it cooks super fast. The key to an omelet is really watching it. So this is the time we wanna be patient and watch for little things to let us know when it's time to flip. So before I even put it in there, I'm going to measure out my cheese, because I don't wanna have to be doing this, and that while I'm supposed to be watching my omelet. So the cheeses that we're using today is a little bit of feta cheese, and we're going to use some shredded cheddar cheese as well. And we're going to use 1/4 cup of that mixture. These two together make it really good. Again, you can use any cheese that you want, mozzarella, just cheddar, provolone, pepper jack if you want a little spice. But this is a great way to try some new healthy cheeses and also have a really nice cheesy two-colored omelet. The oil that we're going to be using today to cook our omelet is we're going to use some olive oil. You can just use some mild cooking oil. It's a great healthy fat. I always tell people to cook with oils and not butter. It's the easiest way to change up your health for the better, and it gives your heart the fuel that it needs to pump up your body for the rest of the day. As we say, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so let's start it right by using some oil. So I'm going to just eyeball about a tablespoon of oil, just like that. And like I said, this pan cooks really fast, so I'm gonna start it up and we're gonna turn it on medium. And as soon as it gets hot, then we can pour our omelet in. Again, always be safe when you're using a hot pan, even something like this that cools down very quickly. You just never know, and you never want any accidents to happen. A great way to know when your pan is hot and your oil is ready is it will start spreading. As you can see, it's already doing here. It's kind of spreading to the sides of the pan. We want to make sure that the oil gets all sides of the pan. So I'm going to lift it up and just kind of push it around just like this. Make sure every part is coated and covered. Put my hand over it. Ooh, it feels hot. It feels ready to put our omelet in. So let's pour it in. You want to pour it as evenly as possible around the pan. Get every last drop in there. All this healthy food. Every part counts. Don't leave out anything. And again, we want our eggs to cook evenly. That's our key to the omelet. So what I'm going to do is lift up my pan and just make sure that the eggs are spread around evenly. You can also go in with your trusty spatula and move some of the vegetables around to make sure that they're all cooking evenly. And we're just going to let it cook on the bottom for a few minutes. A sign to know when it's ready to flip is that it'll kind of bubble up on the side and it'll really be cooked through on the bottom. So let's give it a few minutes. I feel like we're about at a halfway point now. So what I'm going to do is, depending on if you're left or right-handed, we'll usually decide what way you flip your omelet. I'm right-handed, so I'll probably flip it this way to the left. So what I'm going to do is take my cheese and put it on the left side of my omelet in a half moon shape. Feta or any white cheese and cheddar cheese is a great combination. The cheese will start to melt a little bit, and as soon as you pop the top over, it'll keep on cooking and you'll get a nice cheesy omelet. Depending on your pan size, your omelet may cook slower or faster. For example, I have a wider pan, so the eggs are going to spread out thinly. They'll probably cook a lot quicker. If you have a smaller pan, it's going to be thicker, so it may take more time. A great way to tell if it's ready to flip is you want to take your spatula and kind of try to move the outside. You see how my omelet is moving all kind of in one piece? That's how I know that the bottom part is nice and cooked through. And your omelet in the top is going to still be a little bit raw, but it'll keep cooking internally. So here is the big moment. Whew, take a deep breath. Fingers crossed. We're going to try to flip. So take your spatula. The bigger spatula, the better. We're going to take it under one side. I think I'm going to hold my pan just for some stability. Put it all the way under there. 1, 2, 3. Yes! Okay, great! Success! It's just a tad bit golden on this side. It has a beautiful crust on it. We're gonna press it down just a little bit. And within a minute or two, it'll be done. Flipping it over is gonna help heat it up on the inside to cook the rest of the eggs and the cheese together. This part is optional, but I wanna make sure it evenly cooks on both sides. So I'm gonna take my spatula all the way under my omelet and flip it to the other side. We're going to sprinkle some salt and pepper on there. You can always put this in the egg mixture, but sometimes it's good on top, just for a little bit of seasoning. I've seen people use ketchup. I've seen people use hot sauce. Either way, whatever toppings you want, it's your omelet. Sometimes some plain Greek yogurt or some avocado. Yum. So let's put this on the plate, and then we are almost ready to enjoy this awesome omelet. Yay, look at that! We did it together. We conquered our breakfast basics. Just gonna move my skillet here just a little bit. And here we go. Look at what we have. We have our breakfast basics, our omelet made today on the menu. If you would like more ideas or you'd like to share your omelet with us, visit grymca.org.